Welcome to Newly Invested, the podcast that's all about the real, sometimes raw journey of real estate investing. I'm your host, Judith Tait, bringing you conversations from the trenches of the investment landscape where we celebrate victories, learn from setbacks, and unlock the secrets to successful property investing. Whether you're a novice investor seeking tips and guidance or a seasoned pro eager to share your story, you've come to the right place. Let's get started and delve into the exciting world of real estate investing. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Newly Invested. I'm your host, Judith Tait, and today we are joined by Ray Glymph. I'm so honored to have him here on the show today. So just a bit about Ray. Ray is a business and life coach who has helped encourage not only new, but veteran entrepreneurs to better their business. Mr. Glymph has inspired business of all sizes, from mom and pop businesses to eight-figure corporations. His unique coaching style has awarded him the spotlight on many platforms. Glymph has been featured on Yahoo, Google, and is a 40 under 40 candidate. Most recent awards include Best New Business of the Year and NAACP Champion of Change. Mr. Glymph is a driven entrepreneur who knows a lot about triumph in the world of business and is able to achieve his dream of a successful career through self-motivation and determination. Welcome, Ray.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Pleasure to be here.
Oh, yes. Pleasure to have you here. I'm so honored. So just for a little bit of a background for our listeners and watchers, I met you at the multifamily conference just a few weekends ago, and you got on stage. You spoke after lunch. So usually after lunch, everyone's just like in a slump, but you got on that stage and the energy you brought to that room was just like it woke everyone up.
Hopefully I can bring that same energy here. That's what I'm here for.
Oh, yes, exactly. And your story is so inspirational. So let's start. Tell us how long you've been investing in real estate.
So I've been investing for about 8 to 10 years, maybe 12. I don't want to show my age too much, but I'm investing for a decent amount of time.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. And you shared at the conference, you shared a very inspirational story of your why. So please share that with us. I just love the story.
Oh, sure. So, my story is from homeless to over 100 units. That's kind of the story and how that came about. My family, I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York. We grew up, lower class. But we had good family values, good morals. But my parents didn't have the financial education. And then September 11th came, being New York City, Twin Towers fell, and my dad lost his job. There was a big recession in New York City, and they just weren't able to keep up with the rents. We still had, rent increases. And I remember we moved and, we had to move again just to try to, catch up. And eventually they couldn't catch up and we ended up in a homeless shelter. And, being in a homeless shelter, I think I was about 10, 11. And I remember I spent my birthday in a homeless shelter, and there was a blackout of, I forget whatever year, but it was a blackout. There was no power, so it was about 300 people in the dead of summer in a homeless shelter sitting around. So you can imagine the smell. I remember the rats scratching the walls, the roaches climbing on the walls, and being a kid at that time, I just thought I never want to be in this position again. I'll do whatever it takes. And that became like a very strong why and motivation for me. Even to this day, it fuels me.
That's such a beautiful story. It's such a beautiful why. And I'm pretty sure most people can feel the impact that had on you. And it's that's a pretty grown-up lesson for a child to learn. Like I never want to be like this, or I never want to be in this situation again. And for you looking back, so like when you tell that story, how do you feel right now telling that story?
Oh man, I still get chills. I still get chills thinking about it. As a person, it never changes me. I still keep the same humility. I still keep the same drive, the same hustle, the same passion is still there. It's ingrained in me because, I've been at the bottom, right? Like I've seen the bottom. Even my bottom might be not as bad as some other person's bottom.
Yeah.
But this is enough for me to know I'll do whatever it takes to not go back to the bottom.
Yeah.
So every day, I wake up with, affirmations. I wake up with the mindset and, the willingness and the impactfulness to not be at the bottom.
Yeah, that's beautiful. All right, speaking about your affirmations, what are they? I love it. Let's talk about that shirt.
Yes, yes, yes. So I have three affirmations. I deserve to be wealthy, I deserve to be healthy, and I deserve to be free. Um,
Yes.
and you know, with those affirmations, I want all three. The wealth, you know, you need money. No matter where in life, whatever you want to do, you need money. Money, everything costs, right? Every
Hmm.
decision you make costs. So money is what fuels you. Health keeps you going. Wealth without health is nothing. So
Yes.
you need to be healthy. And, you know, I told the story on stage where I almost had a heart attack, and I remember being in the hospital, and the only thing I wanted to do was spend time with my family.
Yeah.
And every little chance that I could think of, it hit me of like, man, I could have did this or I should have did that. And so health is very important. I know a lot of people who are, you know, they're wealthy, but they're in terrible shape, you
Yeah.
know, and eventually everybody meets their maker, and you know, you want to make sure that you give yourself the best chance. And then finally the freedom, right? So I know people who, you know, work out at the gym and they may have money, but they work 80, 90, 100 hours a week. You
Yeah.
So yeah, they might make a lot of money and they might be in great shape, but they are not free, right? I want to be able to wear what I want to wear and do what I want to do when I want to do it at the time and the pace that I want to do it. And I think
Yeah.
that all three of those is a true freedom.
Yes, I agree. I remember you showed a picture of someone in a suit,
Mhm.
and to you, like that was your idea of freedom. Like, I don't have to wear a suit,
Yeah.
like I can wear my freedom t-shirt.
That,
Or,
that that was
you
me in
know.
a suit. That was actually me in a suit. I had went to an event, and
Oh,
every
okay.
every time I go to events, I'm like, man, I really don't want to dress up for this. This is not who I am, but I'll throw in a suit.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's just you know, in my life, I've worked so hard that I feel like I need to express myself in a way that I feel comfortable. And suits for some people is just, you know, it's that uniform. And for me,
Yes.
I want to wear a uniform. My uniform is my freedom, and that's why I wear.
Yes. Oh, okay, great. Yeah, you know what? I totally forgot that that was actually a picture of you in the suit. I just remember seeing the suit and how you associated that suit with not being free.
Mhm.
And that had an impact on me because I worked in a career where I wore a uniform every day. And once I left that career, I felt so free because I was free to create my life, create my day, create my schedule the way I wanted to create it. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That picture had an impact on me for sure.
Wow, that's good to hear.
So yeah, thanks. So what's your idea of wealthy? Because wealth can be it can be defined in so many different
Oh yeah,
ways.
yeah.
Yeah.
There are levels to wealth, and again, wealth to everyone means something different. To
Yeah.
some people, it may be not having to worry about the mortgage being paid, right?
Yeah.
That could be some person's wealth. To some, it could be, you know, having food in their fridge. To others, it could be going to a restaurant, not looking at the prices. It could
Yeah.
be, you know, what car do I want to drive or what car do I have to drive?
Mm,
It could be, you know, and
yes.
at this point in wealth, it becomes which asset do I want to buy and why do I want to buy that asset? That is
Yes.
the wealth factor I'm in. And it scales as you get bigger. It becomes, hey, what boat do I want to buy? Or, you know, it just there's always more to buy. But wealth also is, you know, the ability to spend it with family. You know, my
Yeah.
family is taken care of. I have you know, that is the wealth to me.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. Yes. And that also ties into the health part because without your health, you have nothing.
Yeah.
And that's really interesting how you said that when you weren't well, you all you wanted to do was spend time with your family.
Mhm.
So that's good. Okay, so tell us about your very first investment.
Um,
Where was it? What was it? And what was that experience like?
so I'll tell you, I got two actual first investments. One was my first business investment. I didn't share this on
Okay.
stage. It was actually a big risk. I started a food truck. It was a taco truck. And
Oh,
I dropped out of college. I went to school for industrial engineering, and
okay.
I got a reimbursement check. It was about 3 or 4 grand. I dropped out of school and I bought a food truck, and I was out selling tacos late night. And that really started my entrepreneurial journey. And my first real estate investment, oh man, this was a rough one. I bought this really sketchy house. from from what I didn't know at the time was a wholesaler. The guy could have probably ran off with my money. But I bought this really sketchy house in a really bad neighborhood. This neighborhood was like an F. It was a really bad neighborhood at the time, and I think I paid like $25,000 for it. I renovated
Oh,
it and I over renovated it, and I was like, I watched HGTV, and I was like, man, I can really make this the best house ever. But yeah, and it was a great house, but it was just in the wrong neighborhood. Um,
okay.
but I remember that first check that I got from that tenant and how happy they were about how beautiful that house was. And at that point, I remember I didn't have to, cook this taco or, clean this truck out. I was getting that residual income that first check, and it was a wild feeling. Then a check came the next month, and the following month, and the month after that. And at that point, I knew real estate is where I needed to be if I really wanted true freedom.
Yeah. Oh, good. And do you still have that house?
No, unfortunately, I sold it. One of my biggest mistakes, I think, in real estate was selling. I sold that house, and my first two investments I actually ended up selling.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you mentioned that it was a great house that you were able to fix up and you used like, YouTube University and HGTV. So what you mentioned the neighborhood. It was an F neighborhood. So what exactly does that mean for people who don't know?
Yeah, so typically in real estate, we define areas of investment by their neighborhoods, and so a F neighborhood is going to be like the bottom of the barrel, drugs, violence, low community, bad school systems. Those are the things that we're determining. It's not the most desirable places for people to live, right?
Okay.
Um, but still, and even in today's theory, I believe people still need and deserve investors in F neighborhoods and those D neighborhoods because those people are giving people quality housing to live in and places to call home, which, when we were younger, that's all I wanted was a place to call home.
Yeah. Oh. So that's so sweet. Your story is so like it's just so powerful because that's a it's even a crisis today. Like we're in a housing crisis and people can't find places to live. There's lots of people living in shelters for a variety of reasons. So
Mhm.
yeah, you've just got such a powerful story. So okay, so then what are the due diligence steps that looking back that you feel that you should have taken to ensure that you got the right investment in the right area?
So the first thing I wish I would have known and I would have saved so much money and time was one, finding a mentor, somebody who was in this space. At that time,
Yes.
there weren't really podcasts. It was YouTube, but I didn't really even use YouTube as much as I should have.
Yeah.
We didn't have access to this information. It wasn't really Instagram used for this. So finding mentors, finding people, finding a community that do these things that are in real estate, people listening here, this is a great opportunity to learn and continue to educate yourself. So education was number one. Um, Number two was learning how to analyze, right? I think 80% or 90% of investors who start to invest do not know how to analyze a deal. They
Yeah.
don't know whether it cash flows, whether it makes sense. They buy with emotion. And
Yeah.
so that's the number one thing I teach people in my community is we don't buy with emotion. We buy what makes sense.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Talk a bit more about that, like some of the pitfalls of buying based on emotion rather than the numbers.
So I view properties in two different ways. There are investor properties and there are single family homes in which people want to live, right?
Yeah.
And
Okay.
so, for example, I looked at a home and it doesn't cash flow, for example. So you might buy, you might break even, you might lose a little money, you might make a little money. As an investor, you want to make as much money as possible, right? So there are some homes that you may buy that might be turnkey, beautiful homes, ready to move in. That might not necessarily be the best investment for
Yeah.
investors. We're always looking about how we can force value and further increase and add value to these properties. So I'm looking at things that maybe I can rehab, right?
Mm.
Or maybe I could, if it is turnkey, which means, it's ready to move in, why is it vacant? Why is it for sale? And is it for sale for the right price that makes sense as an investor to get into?
Yes, exactly. All right. So take us through an analysis, say
Mhm.
from start to end, how you
Sure.
analyze your investments.
I love this. I just got off a call with one of my students and we just did this whole step. So first,
Awesome.
yeah, first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna find a property. An easy trick for people that are just getting started, use the 1% rule. If you're going to dig
Yes.
deeper into it, use the 1% rule. And I can explain the 1% rule is you want the rental income to be 1% of the purchase price, right? So if I'm buying a
Yeah.
property that's $100,000, I want it to be rent for at least $1,000 a month, right? It's
Yeah.
a
Okay.
quick bird's eye view analysis for people who are just getting started. Now, if you meet the 1% rule, you want to go a little bit deeper into it. You want to make sure that the neighborhood makes sense. Like I said, check for things like violence. You want to check for crime. Um, and then school systems. Those are all key metrics that I'm looking at. After that, I want to run the numbers, right? I'm going to be
Mhm.
looking for what we call cash on cash return. I'm going to be making sure that my money is working as hard as possible for me. And typically, I want people listening to think about this. The average investment in real estate, the average investor gets about a 5 to 7, maybe an 8% cash on cash return. We
Okay.
invest with nothing less for a long-term buy and hold, nothing less than 20%, right?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And really we're really looking for 30%. We want 30% return on my money. If I only can get 5% return, I might as well put in the stock market. Less headache, less risk.
Mm.
And that's how we look at real estate as, we want to make sure that our money is working hard with the best return for us possible.
Huh. Interesting. So, are you finding that's easy to find properties with that kind of return?
Yeah, so we're looking in the
Yeah.
right we're looking in the right neighborhoods. We're looking at, as I mentioned, value add. Um, and I mean I can give you guys numbers all day, but we just did a property. I just ran the numbers on it, and we have about a 32% cash on cash return.
Oh, nice.
So that means the money that we put out, we will be made whole within 3 years.
Hmm.
So that's how
Good
we're looking at
stuff.
deals. And that is how you get your, everybody talks about scale, and everybody wants to grow to 50 doors, 100 doors, but your money has to be working with you. You can't be the only one working.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. All right. So, when it comes to scaling, a lot of people raise capital. And I remember you saying that capital raising is not something you did at all or did much of, or you're just not a fan. So tell
Yeah.
us how you managed to scale your portfolio without raising capital.
Yeah. So I'm not a big fan of capital raising. I've done it one time. And I'm doing one other deal, and I hate doing it just because I'm working for somebody at the end of the day. I may be a GP in it, but I'm actually working for the LPs, you know.
Mm,
And I work too hard to go back to work for people. I'd rather try to make it on my own or have partners. I'd rather have partners in it, and that way we each have a duty. Um, but the scale came from, buying creatively.
okay.
Again, making sure that your money works hard for you. And some of that creativity might be, seller finance, creative finance, subject to deals. Um, all types of real estate can be bought different ways, and it becomes building relationships as well.
Okay.
So those
All
are some
right.
things that, I scaled in. And I'll tell you, the first two single family homes I bought, those first two, I knew that if I scaled, I could make a lot more. And so, this first unit, for example, this first house that I bought was making 1,000, the second was making 1,000. And in my head, I thought, if I can get this to 6 to 8 to 10,000 in one building with one roof and couple windows or one HVAC, it works a lot better. The numbers make more sense. And so that's when I decided to get into the bigger units, the bigger multifamily deals.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So for someone who has little money or maybe no money to invest, how would they get started in real estate?
That's great. That's actually a really good question because a lot of people ask that all the time. I think
Yeah.
there's two ways. One is wholesaling, right? And it's pretty much you find a property, you get it under contract, and you assign the contract. You assign your equitable interest in the contract. Wholesaling, check if it's legal in your area, but in most areas in the United States, totally legal. Um,
Mm,
you could wholesale a deal, and I know wholesalers who make 5,000 per assignment, 10,000, 20,000. It just takes time to do it. And they can make that per deal. And I know people who are doing it full time, they're doing, uh 10 to 20,000 per deal. Wholesaling is going to be one
okay.
place. And then um Number two, getting into a community. I would recommend getting into a community of people who are actively doing real estate. And, there are a lot of deals made in communities. For
Hmm.
example, one of the people in our community, um, she found two deals that she couldn't take on both. She's going to take on one. The guy did sell a finance. He asked her for $10,000 down. She had access to that. But the second deal, she actually wholesale. She sold that second deal for 10,000. And so with that
Okay.
10,000, she
Huh.
pretty much got the property for free. So there are
Wow.
ways to get into real estate with little to no money.
Huh. Okay. I've heard a lot about this wholesaling. I don't I don't fully understand it myself, but it does sound like it's a pretty lucrative business. And
Yeah.
there's people that just that's all they do. They just wholesale,
Hmm.
which yeah, seems pretty good.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, so there is so much going on in Canada now with real estate. And I find that there's a lot of investors flocking to the US.
Yeah.
So why is that? And what are the pros and cons of investing in the US?
Um, I'll start with the pros for sure. One of the biggest pros is long-term debt. Every, I believe, 5 years, you have to refinance your debt in Canada. Where in the US, we have
Yeah.
term debt 30 years. So I'm doing a new loan right now. I mean, even my house right now, I think is at a 2.9% for 30 years. So if
Wow.
yeah, so when interest rates go up and down, we don't really care. The average US citizen doesn't look at that. Most of them are in
Huh.
fixed debt. And I have assets with that 2.9, 3%, 4% debt. And for us, 4% for a while was pretty high. And
Yeah.
now we see I'm doing a new deal. My interest rate is about an 8 or 9.5, you know.
Oh, wow.
But if interest we lock that debt and if interest rates continue to go up, great, doesn't matter. If they come down, we refinance when we feel it's fit if they're low enough. So that's one of the biggest things that I see. And number two would be rental control.
Yeah.
In Canada, there's a lot of rental control, which is very prohibitive to landlords as far as upgrading properties.
Yeah.
If there is rental control, and we've seen it a lot in bigger cities like New York City, California, where landlords would just let the property sit vacant because of the tax implications and the cost to upgrade the property. It just doesn't make sense to do so by the time you rent it out. I've seen deals that would take 100 years to actually get it to break even with all the updates necessary. So
Oh, wow.
rent control actually hurts the consumer and leaves units vacant more than it actually helps.
Mm. Hmm.
So
I
those are
wish
two of
that
the
was the
biggest,
case
yeah,
here.
yeah, those are two of the biggest concerns that we've seen, um, specifically between the two.
Okay. And what are some of the cons?
Um, it could be very intimidating for people from Canada to invest in the US. One, you're not there, right? So you
Yeah.
have to put in strong property management. You have to have strong systems. And then number two would be the taxation. A lot of people worry about the taxation and how they're actually taxed. And again, I say I let the lawyer worry about that and we factor that into our number. Or you let your accountant worry about it and let that factor into your numbers.
Yeah.
And you analyze it from the beginning. Hey, this is how much it's going to be taxed at. This is the cost of doing business. Does this deal still make sense?
Yeah. Okay. So if I wanted to invest in anywhere in the US, what would you say is the very first step that I should take?
Find a deal. I mean, that is the hardest.
Okay.
Find a deal that makes sense. Um, get with an accountant to see what the implications would be, right?
Okay.
And then that would help you analyze for what you need to be looking for and what your return needs to be for it to be optimal.
Okay. All right. Makes sense. All right. So what are the different asset classes that you have in your portfolio?
Oh
And
man.
what's your least favorite?
My least favorite is Airbnb. I hate
Yeah.
Airbnb. I will say it openly. I have two Airbnbs now. I have over 140 units, but I just know I have two because they are the two headaches of mine. One has been transitioned to now short-term rental, so we rent it out for like a month at a time, and we get hired
Okay.
with it. but
Yeah.
it is more of a management business. Every time a tenant moves, you got to deal with cleaning, you got to deal with, Airbnb fees, and you don't really control the asset. Airbnb controls the asset. Is how
Yeah.
and then the other unit I actually just took off Airbnb. I just had a long-term tenant and they pay pretty much a little bit above market rate for a furnished apartment. Other assets I have everything from, classes from D still. I still hold some Ds in my portfolio all the way up to A class properties. And for the people listening, A class property might be like a Starbucks, your common restaurants, anything to like a KFC, all the way down to a D might be like in a not the best neighborhood as well, but it is
Okay.
still sustainable housing. And I have everything from single family to multifamily, commercial, mixed use, duplexes, industrial. So I invest in a little bit of everything.
Oh, wow. So yeah, that's very diversified. And what are the benefits or the advantages of diversifying?
So each class has a different benefit. So I'll give you folks an example. A lot of people don't know this. Um, but if you, let's say, for example, you're investing in commercial real estate, the money you get to you, if you have a triple net lease, we call it triple net lease, the money to you is net to you. So if I rent this place out for 1,500 a month, let's say, that 1,500 is net to me. The tenant pays all the taxes, the maintenance, the insurance. So if the hot water tank goes out, the tenants pay it. Place needs the lawn care needs done, the tenants pay that. The money you get is net to you. So you don't have to deal with those calls from tenants, hey, my hot water tank or the toilet's running. You don't get those calls in commercial real estate. It's one of my
Hmm.
favorite asset classes.
Oh, okay. I like it.
Mhm.
Yes, I've heard that commercial real estate, it's very it's very lucrative. Also, it's just different from, well, here anyway, it's different, like the land, there's no landlord and tenant laws.
Yeah.
And, if they don't pay their rent, you can kick them out easy, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, definitely worth it. A lot of people like they'll invest in like storage facilities. That's another big thing.
Mhm.
So yeah, no, that's great.
Yeah. And then, tenants, it's their livelihood. So they take care of the properties. Um,
Yeah,
we've seen a lot better than residential tenants for the most part. And leases are longer. We go through, a five, maybe I think the average commercial lease is about 5 to 7 years.
yeah. Okay.
So and then we've even done 20-year commercial leases. So,
Yeah,
if you have somebody locked in for 20 years as a landlord, that's kind of one of your best dreams. The best thing that can happen to you is to have
yeah,
a consistent, strong tenant for the next 20 years. So
yeah. Okay. No, great. All right. So, what's one piece of advice that you wish someone had shared with you before you started investing?
get a mentor. Get
Yeah.
a mentor and get a community. Be around
Yes.
people
Okay.
that are like-minded, that are in the same field as you, and you will grow along with them. You will flower, you will prosper. If you're all
Yeah.
alone doing this, you're gonna fall victim to all the pitfalls, and it's gonna cost you a lot more money to,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
people told me that at first, and I'm like, man, no way, man, I can do this thing. And every mistake I've made, my mentors now would be like, Ray, you knew better. And so
Yeah. No,
people
that's
that are doing better than you.
yeah. No, that's really, really good advice. All on my own, and then you realize, thousands of help. Or I need someone to show you the way. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. So now it's time for the lightning round question. So we're just gonna have some fun and find out a couple of things about you. Ready?
Yep.
Okay. Excellent. So if you can have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be and why?
Um, that's a good one. I would say Warren Buffett is the easiest one I think people would poke at. I've
Okay.
I've met some of the big like real estate guys, or maybe even Don Peebles. I would say Don Peebles. Um,
Okay.
if you folks are familiar, Don Peebles, he has over 2 billion in assets, or 20 billion in assets, something with a B. But he's one of
Okay.
the real estate investors in the world.
Okay. All right. What's one surprising fact about you that most people don't know?
I'm probably one of the nicest guys that people don't like. They're scared. If people don't know, I'm like 6'2", 200 pounds, and I work
Yeah.
out, so it's pretty intimidating. But I'm like the nicest guy. I'll talk to you all day, no problem.
Yes, I can agree with that. I remember I was so excited when you followed me. I was like, oh my gosh, he followed me. And oh my gosh, he said yes to being on the podcast. And you're like, I'm a real person. And,
Yeah.
if you follow me, I'll follow you. Like you were so approachable. So that's good. I agree with that. Okay. So what's one piece of advice if you could travel back in time and tell your, say, 13-year-old self or your teenage self
Yeah. Um,
about anything? It doesn't have to be real estate.
I wouldn't even tell him anything. Honestly, I've so far from the bottom. I wouldn't tell him. I would just love to see him again because the drive I had when I was 13, I still have that same passion. I think I had it more when I was 13. You know,
Aw.
so I was working hard, and I think I worked at 1.3 jobs. So that passionate kid, I just love to see him and walk by him and know that he's on the right path.
Oh, that's so sweet. I love that. Oh, that's cool. Good. Okay, so tell us about your free Tuesday classes and where we can find you.
Sure. So every Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we host a free real estate kind of mentorship. It's 100% free. We talk about anything from property management, analyzing deals, walking away from bad deals, not getting emotionally connected, even things like wholesaling. We discuss those all, and you can find it's a Zoom class, and you can find me easily on Instagram or Facebook, and it's just my name, Ray, Ray Glymph, Glymph, or you can go to my website, www.rglymph.com, and just click join free classes.
Excellent. Okay, and I will link all of that in the show notes for sure, so everyone can find you easily.
Thank you.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much for joining us today, Ray. It's been a pleasure.
I appreciate it. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy. Hopefully, I brought some value and some energy to people here, and they walk away listening motivated.
Yes, I'm sure they will. And thanks to everyone for watching and listening, and we'll see you next time on another episode of Newly Invested. Happy investing. Bye. And that brings us to the end of another enlightening episode of Newly Invested. A huge thank you to our guest and to all of you for tuning in. Remember that investing in real estate is a journey filled with highs and lows, but the key is to keep learning, keep investing, and keep growing. If you want to stay updated with our latest episodes, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you enjoyed today's episode, we'd appreciate it if you could leave us a review. This is your host, Judith Tait, signing off, and we'll see you next time on another episode of Newly Invested. Happy investing! The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the podcast. The information shared in the podcast is for general informational purposes only and should not be considered legal, financial, or professional advice.